Make your brand extra.
Today I'm talking to Dan Chan, the Magic Man, the Millionaire's Mentalist, and the Sage of Silicon Valley, Daniel Chan. Dan has been featured on The Hustle, BuzzFeed, The Wall Street Journal, twice on CNBC, and 5 times on Business Insider. He's performed for Google close to 70 times, and most recently, he's performed for Elon Musk. So I have a side note and a correction about today's interview. I mentioned Dan being the Millionaire's Magician. That's incorrect. Dan is the Millionaire's Mentalist. My brain just smushed magician and mentalist together. I hope you enjoy this really fun interview. Stick around to the end because Dan does a trick that blows my mind, and he's going to give you the opportunity to learn the trick yourself. So let's get started and talk to Dan about everything branding, everything magic, and everything mentalism. Hi, Dan, it's so good to talk to you today. I know you have a lot to teach our audience about branding and creating a brand that can't be ignored, so let's get right into it. Tell me what led you down this path. How did you end up in the magician world?
Well, I always had an interest in magic when I was a child. David Copperfield been an inspiration to many. But once I started working, I hated most of my jobs. I had a lot of fun jobs, but when I went into the corporate world at PayPal, I just hated it. I was just knowing that I was clocking in and clocking out and doing the 9 to 5. And I'd rather be in control of my destiny. Even with the stock options, I did not feel like that was worthwhile.
I think a lot of us can identify with that, being in the corporate world and that soul sucking, clocking in and out and not really having a greater thing that you're working toward. I think that all of us here can definitely identify with that. So you have built a really strong brand around being the millionaire's magician. And I'm sure you didn't start out there. You didn't start out as the millionaire's magician. So tell me how your brand has evolved over time, and where did you start? And then how did you end up creating that messaging around what you do?
First of all, it's the Millionaire's Mentalist. Someone else actually has the Millionaire's Magician.
I'm
So
sorry about that.
no
I
worries.
definitely had that wrong in
And,
my notes.
and the thing is, I pretty much did something and changed it. And I think it is enough where I can be like, this is my thing. So I started off as Dan Chan, the Magic Man, which rhymes, and it's also an alliteration. Then I
Mhm.
did Dan Chan, Master Magician, which still has the alliteration, but it's not as catchy. I still have people calling me Dan Chan, the Magic Man. And then I pivoted to the Billionaire's Magician, but I ran out of Billionaires to perform for, and I just performed for some this weekend, believe it or not.
That's
Um,
amazing.
Often doing a lot of shows for billionaires. I've performed from A to Z, from Airbnb, Apple, Adobe, Amazon, to Zillow, Zuckerberg, Zoomingo, and Zillow. Um,
I love all of your language. Your use of language is amazing. Spot on.
Language can be hypnotic. It can
Mhm.
create rhythm and pattern. It's almost like poetry,
Yeah.
you know.
So you ended up, I'm sorry, as the millionaire's mentalist. So talk to me about that. What is the difference between being a magician and being a mentalist? Is there a difference?
It's some mind reading, and maybe at the end I might be able to show you an example or give you some links. So
Yeah.
if you go to millionairesmentalist.com, you can see the difference. And then danchanmagic.com is more magic related. So mentalism is all about connecting. For example, if I ask you to think of a person, a place, or a thing that evokes a positive thought or emotion, then that's about you versus that being about me, or look what I can do. Magic, I make cards appear from my fingertips and things like that. But mentalism is so much more than that. Like this is just magic, right? That's looking at me. But I can ask you to what playing card you're thinking of, and I maybe I'll do that a little bit later.
Yeah, for sure. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
So how do you think that so you perform under both kind of umbrellas? You do the magician umbrella and you do the mentalism umbrella. How do you think that, let's pick one. Let's stay on the mentalism.
You just muted yourself. I think you hit something. Yep, there you go.
Yeah, I think I moved my chair a bit and I hit my cord. So how do you think that your positioning as the Millionaire's Mentalist, how do you think that that's impacted your journey as an entrepreneur as far as
Yeah,
how other people see you?
I think that's good for selling tickets and for the normal Joe to build a celebrity. Like if I want to bring it, if I'm doing public shows, it's a draw. But everyone in the Silicon Valley is a millionaire. You own a house and you're a millionaire. So, some people might be like net worth or like at zero as well. But I think Millionaire's Mentalist is just catchy for me. And
Right.
that's what I'm doing now. But I'm looking to rebrand in the future to be the Sage of Silicon Valley.
Oh, I love that too. I
So
know that would
have
be successful
given
for you.
I've given a lot of brands my ideas. And in fact, when I perform at these companies, I have given them feedback and they've connected with me on LinkedIn recently. So I've
Mhm.
told them about their products. I told them about their suggestions. And these are really interesting suggestions because I study the brands and business models. So a lot of small companies, when they hire me, they think they're just getting a magician. But when they find out a lot more, I've been given, $1,000 tips at the end of my performance on trade shows because I've been able to connect them and provide so much more value that they want to keep in contact with me.
That's really brilliant. I love that so much. So you're coming in not just with like entertainment, but bringing a ton of business value. Now, before you were in this world and you were in the corporate world, did you did you work in a capacity where you were doing analysis of business? How did you, or are your tips that you're bringing from the mentalism world?
They're just common sense. They're things I wish they would have. Like I'm like, oh man, I wish Yelp would get rid of old photos, or this is no longer the menu, or this is not the right price. Sometimes people might put price or inaccurate
Right.
description or something like that. It's just like, dude, why is this still on the menu? Or a suggestion for Quora or Google or things that I use often and things that I wish they would implement. But the thing is, it's kind of cool when I meet someone live in person and they're the manager in charge of that specific product.
Right.
That's like I go crash parties for a living, and Google has hired me 66 plus times. So
That's
it's kind of
amazing.
interesting because every time they hire me, I like buying one share of stock because then I can pitch a reporter telling them, hey, these are all the companies that have hired me. And I buy a share of stock. And then Business Insider wrote an article on why I love Google because I said, well, it's easy for a kid to click on an ad every single time. And every time you click an ad, Google makes money. I've
Right.
asked my wife, let's buy a Tesla. And she's like, no. We finally got our Tesla, but it took me like 3 years. So I was just saying, hey, this is why I think about that. I too have basic business school, which is studying Porter's five forces: strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat, which is SWOT analysis. And those are the few things that I still remember from business school. I'm sure
Okay.
there's other things um, that I internalized, but in terms of like distillation, you pretty much distill a lot of the concepts and you don't use a lot of things, or you don't consciously use a lot of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You're not going textbook answer on everything. I love that I love what you said about it's just things that you want to see. You're bringing things that you want to see to life. And that's super good. So as an entrepreneur, because you're not only a magician or a mentalist, you are definitely full-blown entrepreneur. You do all of you manage everything as well as being the doer of the thing. So tell me about how you are getting your leads.
So I start liking posts and writing congrats to get in the DMs. A lot of people right now are messaging me over Facebook and just literally doing a friend connection request because
Mhm.
I'm top of my industry.
Right.
And they don't have any context. They don't send me a message but beforehand saying, "Oh, I love your work," or "I'm supporter of your work," or anything like that. So I pretty much ignore all of those. But people who say something like, "Oh, I've been following you for quite a time. It's inspirational that your career's gone there." Those are the people that you want to connect with. So, buttering people up just a little, but not going overboard with it is one thing that I recommend doing. Like, if you
Mhm.
want to get in someone's DMs, start liking their post and start commenting, because they're like, "Oh, who's this guy commenting?" Because the algorithm favors engagement. So if you want to get on my radar, start liking my Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever that you're on, and add value to the conversation. One cool tip is to write in ChatGPT, "Respond to this Facebook post,
Oh,
colon," and then it'll sound like AI, and then delete it
right.
to the core essence. Eliminate it so that it doesn't sound like ChatGPT. I've done this in engagements. I've also done it where I just made it up myself, and my son's like, "Did ChatGPT write this for you?" I'm like, "No, I'm writing it to you, son, but thanks for thinking that I'm now a lot more professional," because he doesn't believe that I'm that good.
Right.
But I started using ChatGPT so much that it's kind of internalized some of it. Just
Yeah.
start becoming better. It's kinda like your friend who's better at tennis, and you play with them every day and you start getting better.
Right.
ChatGPT's that person to me, because I'm like, "Rewrite the script," and I just take little bits of it, and, you know, the rewrite colon prompt, I almost do that for everything I send out. I probably did something like that for you. I probably said, "Respond to this," and then or rewrite this on
Right.
every outgoing message.
Yep. I have a love-hate relationship with ChatGPT. I think it's an amazing tool. What I hate to see is when someone copies and pastes and you know that it's ChatGPT and it's just very the hate side of it is the it's almost like everything stock photo that you're just like, oh well it looks like a stock photo. Can we just be a little original for a second? So whenever I see something that I'm like, oh, it's been just copied and pasted from ChatGPT, it's very robotic. I love what you said because that's the love side that I have with ChatGPT. The using it as a tool and then, modifying it and bringing humanity into it.
Yeah, and that is something that you have to be aware of, because it's very repetitive and
Yes.
you have to distill it and delete. I'm horrible at spelling, and I'm horrible at being I'm too direct. So a lot of times when ChatGPT says something, it sounds like my secretary wrote it, so it's
Mm,
not like harsh, because I'm very like, bam, I'll hit you like with a ton of bricks when I'm talking, and that is something that doesn't work well with people. That's a weakness. For some people, you might be great at spelling already, or you have time to think out a 20-minute email. For me, I'm just like, respond to, and then I add stuff, and I'm like, "Oh, this is my true intent," or this doesn't sound like my voice in some instances.
right.
When I want to get to someone, I'll change the voice back to me.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
if I want to get to know someone, I'm definitely going to change the voice back.
right. I love that. So, along with ChatGPT, are there any other tools or strategies that have been really beneficial to you in your career?
Scaling and getting on media. I've been featured on The Hustle, BuzzFeed, Business Insider 5 times, CNBC twice, and that has allowed me to have a worldwide reach. So
Right.
whatever you think about scaling, that's gonna really help your business. Before, magic wasn't scalable, but you probably read the article about me doing lots of shows on Zoom. Right now, I've done close to 600 shows on Zoom. On December 20th of 2020, I did 52 shows in a week, 12 shows in a day, 8 shows back to back on a half hour, and
Wow.
do demos for everyone. I try to, instead of just connecting with someone via phone, I ask people, "Can we jump on a Zoom demo?" Before the pandemic, I would never do a podcast like this,
Mhm.
because I just didn't see the value of it. Now
Right.
everyone's a potential customer, because I wanna sell tickets to everyone around the world.
Right.
For ticketed magic shows eventually. And some of these goals might take you 5 or 10 years, but if you write down your goal, you can move toward that a little small step. You're not going to get there immediately, but the
Right.
goal to perform for people like Elon Musk, that was like a really weird goal. And, if I told too many people about it, they're going to be like, yeah, right. Well, it happened.
Yeah.
I had to go to perform for the CEO of Zoom. That just happened this last weekend.
Oh, that's cool. Kind of coming full circle, right?
Well, you got to have your intention out there and say, hey, I want to do this.
Mhm.
Whether it's I want to, be a thought leader or doing whatever that outrageous goal is, write it down and then tell more people about it. But don't be delusional about it. Like, say, hey, this is the one step that's getting me closer. And I do see a lot of people who just say, I'm going to do this goal, but they don't reverse engineer how they're going to backtrack each single little step.
Exactly.
So me being on this podcast, I said I wanted to have a lot more visibility, become a way better speaker because I did not like how I spoke. Still, I'm feeling a little too excited, and I'm going to look at the podcast again, and I'm going to be like, this is what I could improve.
Yeah, I love that. So a thing that I talk about to my audience a lot is the idea that success equals hard work at a good plan. And not just my audience. This is something I've taught my kids. Like they know what I'm going to say when I start that whole, idea is success equals hard work at a good plan. And exactly what you just said is setting a goal, even if it's a gigantic goal, and working your way from the end to where you are. Because when we look at a problem and we look at where we are and where we want to go, it can seem overwhelming. And that resistance to starting can sometimes keep us from taking the first step and moving toward a goal. But when you look at your goal and then you work your way backwards to where you are, the path becomes clear. So the whole idea of success equals hard work and a good plan, that's exactly what you just said. It's, you had the plan and then you reverse engineered how your hard work is going to get you there. Because if you only had the plan and you didn't have the hard work that took the steps to get you there, then you're in the manifesting crowd, right? You're like, oh, I'm going to get it one day. I'm just going to get it. I promise. But if you are only working, you could be like, this and never really go very far. So I love everything that you just said. It's spot on with everything that I teach. And yeah, it's obviously working. You've been featured everywhere and you've performed for all the people. So that's super cool.
Yeah.
Now, go ahead.
Yeah. But there are still places that I still want to get featured, like Forbes.
Sure. Yeah.
Organic Forbes, not pay to play.
Right.
There's a lot of differences between pay to play, which I've done before, but most of what I do is all organic now because it's just more satisfying to know you did it the right way. Like you could cheat with like a magic trick, but doing it and getting people there's too much pay to play, I think, in this industry now. In any industry.
Every industry. Yeah, for sure. And it's hard to tell sometimes what is genuine, what is real, and what is a paid ad now.
Yeah.
Which I suppose for the marketing side of things, that's really good. It's hard to tell, but from the end user, it's difficult to see what is real.
Yeah.
Sometimes. Mm-hmm. Do you have any tips for our audience on how to, like the actual how to of getting featured in something like that, other than being, engaging with people on social media? Is there anything else that you've used, any other strategy that you've used to be featured organically in any of these places?
Yeah, learn something that will set you apart, whether it's a quick magic trick, something to get their attention. But then you have to have some stories behind that. Like, for example, someone might say, oh, I'm an Amazon driver, an Uber driver. Well, that's because companies journalists will always write about Uber, Lyft, Amazon, Walmart. So anytime someone writes about Google, like there are specific reporters that just cover Google. There's specific reporters that just cover Amazon or Uber. So some of you might be like, oh, I'll go drive for Uber for a week. That's at least the story will be true. Like for me, I didn't really consciously think of working for PayPal to pitch a journalist, but I worked there for 13 months and I had stock options.
Right.
You don't have to have stock options, but that makes the story a lot cooler because the journalists can be like, oh, you were early? How early were you? Well, I was there before Elon was before PayPal
Yeah.
and X merged,
Right.
technically. So I was there earlier, but
Mhm.
that's like the hard work. If you don't have a story, you could just literally go work at Walmart and then pitch a reporter or Uber or Lyft or Uber Eats and just say, hey, I used to be an Uber driver and now I'm making $100,000 a year, and then doing whatever your hustle is now. And then you can go to CNBC Make It. They always are looking for stories like how people became successful.
Mm.
And if you're really tech savvy, just go on TikTok and get the reach. If you're really comfortable with yourself in that skin, I think that's the next step for me of just doing like character stuff and other little bits and having a safe place to fail where you're not being judged.
Mm.
My crowd probably won't see this podcast unless they're a super fan. And I
Right.
do know I have some super fans. So people who are like stalking me online, they'll
Right.
probably see this. But find a place where you can just let go and have a safe place to fail.
Right. I love everything that you're saying is completely branding. It's all branding. The story, the setting yourself apart, being different, all of those things are everything that people need to be doing to create a brand. And it sounds like even if you weren't mindful of like, I'm creating this amazing brand, you have hit all of the things in your story that have created something really magical, pun intended. So as you have kind of evolved in your time as a magician, as a mentalist, are there any specific skills from that world, without telling too many secrets? I know that you are in that world, and that a lot of times it is kind of a no, we don't break the code kind of thing. Is there anything that you have found from the magic world that carries over into the business world that you can share with the audience?
It's more the things that I learned from the business world that carry into the magic world that made me successful. I feel I'm a, show business. There's 4 letters to the word show, and I think 8 letters in the word business. So I focus twice as much on the business as I do on the show.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. That's cool that you went to business school. You had that to carry into the magic world. That's really probably unique in that world. I would say that most people don't, who are in interested in magic and mentalism, they probably don't think that they're interested in business. Would that
Yeah,
be,
they
you
make
think?
excuses or they say something like, "Oh, I'm not very good at that," or
Right.
"I'm not good at the business side." Well, magic's way harder. Business is just a concept or a strategy or framework, and it's just about getting out there and doing it, and sometimes just doing the things that no one else wants to do. So,
Right.
like, you're already doing the practice that no one wants to do, but if you split the time between the business side or paying the price, like a lot of people go cheap. They have a cheap
Mhm.
videographer, which I also do, but when you get better and better, you start learning how to create relationships and trades. Like whenever I show up to an event, I will treat the photographer like a VIP. I will do tricks for them, and I will actually tell them when this happens, start snapping, because that's when the freak out moment happens.
Oh, that's good.
But I won't start with that. I'll do like 5 or 6 tricks for them, making them feel like, dude, you're the best. And how do I want to support them? And if you look at my website, Dan Chan Magic or Millionaire's Mentalist, a lot of those photos were done on trade. And those photos are priceless. They
Yeah.
make me look like $1,000,000.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. And I think that magicians and people who are in the show business field, they are creatives, and a lot of times creative people have to really be intentional about working hard on the other side, that business side, that processes side. We're not typically good at that. So I think that you are spot on there. You just do it. You practice your craft, you practice, design, or you practice magic, or you practice acting, or you practice, performing music. If you practiced business at the same time, split your time, at least a little bit of your time given to that, then you'll find that it's not that difficult. It's boring, but sometimes the growth is in the boring, right?
Yeah. And the thing is, I noticed that you said you made websites, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So one thing is, don't make your own website. Honestly, outsource. Find someone who does websites better. And I find websites, photographers, I go on freelancer.com to find the most competitive. But if you don't want to project manage it, you're going to spend a little bit more money, but it's a lot easier. For me, I love using Freelancer because I find videographers and website designers and many other things.
Right.
Your time is worth money, so hire just one person, and you know who you're going to use for your websites already, right? And build that relationship because you're already a fan of the podcast. So that emits value.
Mm-hmm.
And for everything else, you just want to always lead with value first and
Right.
keep the connection open, but also not sell, because if you're good enough, people are gonna find you. But it is very competitive. There's like different tiers. There's the $100,000 magician, I know. There's the
Right.
$10,000 magician, and I'm trying to get to that $100,000 mark.
Right.
And I know there's magicians doing that. People can say, "Oh, not many people are doing that," but there are people doing that. So even if, like, I talked to a guy and he said, "Oh, you're better than this world famous magician," and I found out that he was charging 100,000, and I was like, at that time I was only charging 1,000, so I was like, I'm gonna get myself to 5,000.
There
So
you
I got
go.
myself a couple of $5,000 gigs this season, but it just lets me know that I can still improve, and if someone could do that, I can do it too. And I'm not gonna make
Right.
that excuse. Even if it's just like the guy who wants to save 50%, there's not like the guy that I saw at 100,000, I asked a guy who's literally at the party who hired this top name magician, and I asked him, "Did you spend that much?" I created a relationship with him. Well, let me back down.
Yeah.
I did this party. The guy said, "You're better than this very famous magician." At that time, I found out that the magician was 100,000. Immediately after I met this guy who hired him, I was like, "Oh, did you hire this guy for 100,000?" He immediately shut down because the relationship
Oh,
wasn't there.
right.
So I thought really quickly, and I circled the guy like a shark at the party. I was looking at him and seeing where he was the entire party, and I made everyone freak out around him. I was just far enough
Ah,
away. At the end, he's like, "What the hell is everyone reacting to?" Like, I've seen this big name magician that's on TV and has TV specials.
mhm.
What's this guy? How good is he? I did 25 more minutes of magic for him when he finally came around to check me out, and I just said to him at the end of this, when everyone left, I said, "Is it true that you spent 100,000?" He said, at that time he was like, "You're good," like he knew that. He just
Right.
said, "I got 25% off," and I was like, "Oh, you spent 75,000." Okay, so when you need like people want different flavors, people want different uh
Right. Yeah.
they want Chinese food, they want Thai food, they want different things. They're not going to have that same guy all the time. So I was thinking, boy, if you can spend 75, 5 or 10 would be chump change if I proved value. And
Right.
I've had people at his party say, "You're better than this top name magician." And I've had two people say that, actually 2 or 3 people say that. And that was just to me like, so why am I not getting that money that he's getting? Recently, I was having a conversation with him, and a CEO of a big company gave me his cell phone number, which is a hard thing. But
Right.
can you get just anyone to give you your phone number? And once you can get a regular person, getting a CEO to give you a phone number is the same, because you're treating them like a real person instead of like, "I want this." If you just focus too much on it, sometimes you don't get it because people can tell that's the only thing you want. It's
Right.
like that beautiful girl that
Right.
that everyone wants just that one thing. But if you did everything else, you probably would get that anyways, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
sometimes focusing too hard on a goal is detrimental for some people that are very ambitious. So it's finding balance.
Right. Yeah. We tend to flee that which pursues us too hard. Right. So
Mhm.
leading with value, I think, is definitely the key there. You're right.
Yeah.
That's You've really done some amazing things connecting with people. It seems like you have a natural, have you always been like a natural communicator, like connector of people?
I hate the way I speak, or I like it now, but because I know that I'm me and I know what I'm saying is valuable. So I used to
Hmm.
hate listening to myself,
Hmm.
but because I can hear the energy, people are enthusiastic. People a lot of times, like I know my daughter is shy about like how our voice sounds, but your true friends don't care how you sound, right? They'll
Hmm.
tell you little improvements, but you can't shy away from the improvements. My wife tells me so many things about what I need to do. And I used to shy away from that because I was like, oh, I'm really critical. Now I try to welcome it because she's
Right.
my biggest supporter.
That's so good. It's good to have someone like that in your corner for sure,
Yeah.
who's, you know, honest with you and genuine with you and who you can trust enough to actually listen to their advice. That's a
And
big
even
deal.
the haters, a lot of times when the haters say something on social media, it's probably true in some instances. Even if they're just like, if people are following you, competitors. So it's really interesting. I post gigs and I realize that don't view people as competition, even people in your own industry, because there's going to be if you do the work, there's going to be more than enough work to go around and you'll get to that next level. You'll be the one charging more. But a lot of times people are like secretly cyber stalking you and just be like, oh, the once I started realizing people who really supported me, sometimes you favor the people who's just a nice guy, just clicking like on your post. So just
Mhm.
being a nice guy is a good thing. And I don't think I was a nice, I'm super competitive. So I don't think I was like the super nice guy. And now I've made that pivot to becoming that. And I've started realizing, oh boy, I could have worked a lot less hard if I was just
Uh-huh.
a lot nicer. And I think that that might resonate with some audiences who are like, oh, I'm super great. And then you get a little bit too cocky. Magicians tend to have a little bit ego. So I'm trying to be less of a magician and and break some of the rules, crack some eggs,
Right.
share some secrets.
Yeah.
What's really funny is uh, I I met a CEO recently, another CEO, and I gave him a trick I created, and he's like, "Oh, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that." But yesterday I was in his DMs. He was asking me how the trick works. So I left him a puzzle. Like he was trying to figure out the trick
Oh,
and he couldn't figure out the trick. And this is a guy who's worth $100 million plus.
right.
I'm like, most magicians they'd criticize me for giving a trick to a non-magician, but this guy's actually was a magician many years ago.
Ah,
So I was like, let me give this to you. He was like insisting, no, you don't have to. I'm like, I gave it to you. And that's why he DM'd me back on Facebook saying, hey,
right.
I'm stuck on this. I can't figure it out. It's kind of
Ah,
nice to be wanted or known. You give them a little, but a lot of times people are too lazy to figure it out, especially people of high net worth. You might think, oh, he's going to, make his own website. You make this. But if you do it enough times, even if you just give them a suggestion, you can ask for a testimonial based on a suggestion that they implement on themselves.
right.
Or you can pitch a reporter. Like right now, I'm pitching reporters telling them the biggest company in the world, the VP is asking me for suggestions.
Mm,
I'm pitching that in my rebrand to this as the sage of Silicon Valley. I'm saying this VP of engineering, is connecting with me on LinkedIn, and stay
right.
tuned. I'm pushing to give this company a lot of suggestions because when I get hit in Business Insider for the sixth time, it'll be this magician is whispering secrets to
Right.
the VPs and even navigating the next product. Like this company has literally probably 1,000 articles on it on CNBC and Business Insider.
Hmm.
Just side stories. Why can't I be one of the side stories? And why can't
Right.
you be one of the side stories? Whether you're driving Lyft or doing something else, you got to start with that one company. I think everyone here on this brand could do something little for Amazon, Walmart, Zillow, Zuckerberg. So from A to Z, this is my client list. And I'll just give you that. Adobe, Airbnb, Amazon, Apple, Bank of America, BuzzFeed, Charles Schwab, Chevron, Cisco, all the way to Visa, Walmart, Wells Fargo, and Xfinity, and Zillow. Those are my
It's a
company.
very long
You
list.
can do it too. Yeah.
Yeah. That's, you really are breaking down a lot of the barriers that, especially, I'm here in the Midwest. And so a lot of times I think we feel very far removed from, the tech industry, or, really anything. We're a small town. And so it feels like it's a different level of people, that are unreachable. But I think that the way that you're breaking things down, it makes it feel like, oh, they're just people. They're people too. And they're just people who live in a different area or who do a different thing than I do. But you're making it very realistic that that's possible to reach out into different areas, no matter where you are starting.
Yeah, larger companies want to work with people who have larger teams initially, but you can also do projects that might not just be the website. It might just be a logo design or something that's really small where you open up the connection. But I would say something like, you can always pivot from this brand, but the small town customer service for the big town brands or something like that. Something to that feel where you acknowledge your roots, but say that you're geared toward this because you're going to, pick up the phone, or you're going to do something above and beyond, because small towns are known for the friendliness, right?
Right.
I think I'm going to end off with one magic trick.
Okay, perfect.
Everyone has to pay a price to get in the door, but right here, I have the secret to multiply.
Oh, we all need that trick.
Well, that is a gift for you. I'm going to teach this to you for free right after we stop recording. But for everyone else on the call, if you want to learn how to do that, I have a special offer for you. For $20, I will teach you personally with a tutorial on how that trick works. I'll teach you 3 different versions of this effect and suggest even better versions of this effect as well. This is just a basic trick. I do this all the time to pay for meals. And when you do that, I think that'll set you apart. That can be that one magic trick that gets you in the door, because magic has opened lots of doors for me.
Oh, that's so good. I love that so much. That's amazing. And $20, my gosh, hey, you can take that $20 then, and it's going to turn into $100, right?
It is actually $100 value, but to value emit, what I wanted to do was offer something special for your group, just because I know that people love the power of discounting, and discounting is one way to start off a relationship, but you don't want to always do discount your product, but it's just your way in the door.
Right.
It's okay to discount in the beginning, but don't be the bottom feeder. Don't charge less. When you first start, you can charge less just to build your portfolio.
Sure.
Set your goal to be charging 20%, 50%, or even 100% more than all your competitors. You can do that. That's definitely very possible.
Oh, that's such great advice to end on. Dan, is there anything else that you want to share with the audience before we say goodbye for the day?
I do want to share something with you because I want to build the relationship with you. For everyone else, you can follow my social medias, Dan Chan Magic on Instagram. Feel free to like, comment, and help me boost my engagement and get in my DMs. And maybe I'll give some free coaching or some other things as well if you like what you've heard here.
Perfect. Thanks, Dan, so much for coming on today. And everyone else, I'll see you next time.
Well, hey, friends. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love it if you hit the subscribe button, because friends are fun and success is cool, and here you're going to find both of those. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, leave the show a review. And when you do, your review could be the next one that I read out loud on the show. Oh, and before you go, check out the description box for tools and resources that you can use to make your brand extra, like our free Branding 101 Facebook group. And do you want to take it to the next level? then check out the link to our mastermind group, The Extras, where you can connect with a high-level group of entrepreneurs through live group coaching, exclusive deals, private trainings, and so much more. My name is Alicia, and I teach entrepreneurs like you to create irresistible brands that can't be ignored. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Make your brand extra.